Good morning, everyone, and welcome to American Scousers Morning Coffee or Tea with American Scouser on a Wednesday morning. Beautiful freaking day over here. Look at Sir Z, man. Like a man of international mystery. Today going with Turkish people. That's Günaydın is Turkish for good morning. But yeah, we're back. Beautiful weather here in Chicago. Could not be any nicer. I could have used a couple more hours of sleep, but that's a different story. But we are back. It's Wednesday, so I am back to being the number one greatest dad. And coming close, and a number two, who, by the way, I will get to observe more in action this weekend at the birthday party, which is really the peak of fatherhood, is managing a birthday bash. Gordo, what's happening?
What's going on? Yeah, still looking for my decals for second greatest dad.
They're not as readily available at retail stores as the number one, I noticed.
No,
a lot of number twos.
I don't know if you remember, but I got paint pens and I wrote it on here, and then it's gone now. After it's literally 2 washes, it's gone.
And with us, a future dad in the making over here, growing and getting more and more adult by the day in front of our eyes, is John. What's happening?
I'm good, Tim. Good day here as well in New York. It's not as hot as it was, not as filthy as it was the last 2 days, so I'm grateful for that. Yeah. Well, just for the record, I came from a country that had 2 seasons, which is extreme heat and rain. So I'm just sick of the heat right now. Like everyone and their mother that I meet here in the States is like, oh, I can't wait for summer. Like, screw that. I hate summer.
Really? Wait, so New York winters are pretty rough too. So you would rather have the winter?
Absolutely. And it makes for a good sleeping as well. If you don't got anything to do the next day.
That's good.
Yeah.
See, like Chicago, like I don't know, like being Mediterranean and having seasons, if you will, is kind of an adjustment when you live in the Midwest afterwards.
Because you have like 50 seasons in the Midwest. That's why.
Yeah, but 50 seasons really boils down to 2: ridiculously hot or ridiculously cold, which is 50 seasons in one day, but none of them are good. So that's the Midwest weather for you. But Saidu is here as well as people gather around. John, with the great hosting job fresh off the weekend, you should just take over these morning shows and put everybody out of their misery.
Damn, that's a pretty high bar, Tim. Like, imagine if I'm suddenly here and everyone's like, "Where's Timuchin? Like, why are you here?"
I have very few fans. I can tell that right now.
ASMC.
Right. Right, says we have so many seasons in the Midwest and none of them good. Yes, see, even Sir Z says.
Oh, boy. Yeah.
That is a sign, by the way, of getting.
He hasn't talked about aches and pains yet, so we're okay.
My sister, who loves the weather here, calls me a grumpy old man for complaining, whatever season it is. Like, although I prefer the cold, I still complain about the cold. To be fair, like,
yeah, I mean that's the beauty of Midwest. You can complain at any given time because it's either going to be too hot or it's going to be raining too much or whatever. You get days like today. Like, I don't know, 5 days a year, Gordo?
Yeah.
Like a day like today?
This is one of the perfect days, and it happens to be a Wednesday, of course. So that's Midwest in a nutshell right there. It's like, we're going to give this to you on a Wednesday. I like the cold, too, because, you can always put on more layers, right? There's only so many layers you could take off before you get arrested. So I don't like the heat.
Somebody has tried. I'll tell you the freaking crazy. I mean, I never realized, when I came from, obviously I was born in Istanbul. I grew up in Istanbul and stuff. Then I started college in London, which all you need is an umbrella. I remember it snowed and life stopped over there. And they were like, it snows like this once every decade. We're not going to buy plows to use once a decade. They came out and said it, which I found really refreshing that they came out and said that. I was like, you know what? They're right, kind of a thing. But then I come over here and I'm like, so I come in for college. It's like September. And I remember I'm in my dorm room or whatever. I meet these dudes in the other, across the hall. And then we're talking and stuff like that. And they're like, oh, dude, it's going to get really cold over here. You're in for a shock and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, it gets cold in Istanbul and stuff, gets in the negatives. Because no, he goes like, oh, it's gonna be like in the negatives. And I was like, oh, I'm like, it gets negatives in Istanbul too, like -1, -2, and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can handle it, blah, blah, blah. So I go back to my room, and then I remember, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, that I have a calculator, and then, like the manual has like these conversion things. And then it dawned on me that I was like, I wonder if they were talking like Fahrenheit or Celsius. And because, it's a different language over here. So I freaking put -1 Celsius, like -2 Celsius, like to, like, I'm sure, like -1, -2 Fahrenheit to Celsius. And I was like, what the hell? So I run back there. I'm like, wait, you guys are talking Celsius, right? They're like, what's Celsius? I'm like, oh.
Well, we don't know. We don't know.
And when I did the conversion, I was like, oh my God, it's like -19 or 20 or something. I'm like, I'm going to die. Yeah, it's pretty rough.
Celsius to us is a Harry Potter spell. We have no idea what that is.
Yeah, to this day, I still look at the temperature in Celsius.
Do you really?
Yeah. Back home, it's in Celsius. Like I was going.
Well, back everywhere, I think.
Yeah, I think everywhere. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Ryan says if we shut down every time it's snow, we would go all the way out of jobs. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I mean it's snowed like pretty decent, especially for London, and really lifestyle. I mean, mind you, it's like 2 inches or something. We would say probably a dusting here now. At the time, it seemed like pretty solid, and yeah, London just shut down, and then they pretty much came out and said, yeah, we're not going to buy plows so we can use it once a decade.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, that's fair, I guess. So, but yeah, welcome to adulthood, John, and complaining. Yes, the ache complaints coming soon. We were even talking, wait. We were talking right before we went on air, like 3 seconds before.
Cameron Diaz was.
Oh, I said it's showtime, and it was from The Mask. Have you even seen The Mask even? Because we were talking about how hot Cameron Diaz was in the.
I've seen snippets of it. Yeah, I probably should, because I have this giant list of classic movies that I have to watch that my dad.
Oh, that hurts that you said Mask is classic. Oh, that hurts. Oh man,
I felt like Tom Holland in Avengers. I think saying that very old movie Empire Strikes Back, something like that. Yeah, I meant no offense, but then yeah, it's a long ass list. My dad recommended it to me because my dad's a movie buff, so it's definitely in there. So
it's definitely worth it to see Cameron Diaz at our best.
Oh, I'm sure.
Jim Carrey is not too bad either in that movie, but Cameron is the show. So,
for the record, Tim, on your adulthood, insinuations, I felt like a genuine adult when I started having to pay for my insurance policy. That was when I felt it. I was like, Jesus, this much? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Like fucking hell.
And then when you actually get sick and you're like, wait, didn't I pay? Haven't I been paying for 5 years into this?
This is what I do for a living, Gordo. I work in a billing company for a medical office. So so I understand how much you need to be paying. It's just that it's different when it actually hits your freaking paycheck. Yeah. So like, I was like, dang, so this is how it's like, huh?
Ryan is doing metric to American system conversion and says, did you know that Ryan Gravenberg in metric is still a mid player?
Ryan, it's a beautiful day. Come on. It's a beautiful day, Ryan. Come on.
Oh man. Yeah, we started early this morning. It has been kind of a mess this morning. Let's do the picks.
Yes.
I'll let you run the show. Pretend it's Sunday.
Yeah, pretend it's Sunday. I still have some leftovers from Sunday's hosting thing. So if everyone who's tuned in was watching the Sunday award show, you'll notice that a certain Timuchin and Gordon weren't around, unfortunately. So they haven't been able to give their pick. I think Tim gave his picks, but then it was kind of lost in the shuffle within the whole comments thing.
Yeah, I gave like a few of them, and like while I was watching and stuff like that. Right. But yeah, that's
okay. So
in my mind as I was listening too, so that helped.
Right. Okay. So I'll go through each of the categories again, and then kind of give a breakdown of how we went through it, which is essentially you give your pick and then you give a justification as to why you chose this. So I'll start with. Sorry, let me bring up my notes here. Your season rating out of 10, right, and justify why you rated it. So I guess I'll start with you, Gordon. Out of 10, how would you rate the entirety of the season. The consensus score for the record was around 7 or 7.5.
Yeah, I think.
Let me guess. Gally voted in halves.
It was Maka actually who put in the first decimal. Yeah.
And then people were probably like, "Oh yeah, we can do decimals."
Yeah, we can do decimals.
7.2.
I'd probably say if I had to take the whole season from a 3,000-foot view, I'd say like an 8.5, right? Because at the beginning of the season, we sat down. This is exactly what we wanted. We had a challenge, a title race in there. We went, fairly deep in all the cup competitions. We won a trophy, which was not something, it's something that we wanted, but I think everyone would have settled for fourth. But because of March, where we were at like March 15th, right before that second international break, we play City fantastically at home. We were undone by a penalty call that was not given with the chest kick to Mac. Yeah. And given that and what we tasted, plus the fact that I think everyone really wanted to push the quad for Jurgen's season, I'd probably say 7. So in the middle, 7.75, I think what I'd give it.
That's perfect. That's just in form right there, considering how the ratings went. What about you, Tim?
I mean, if we're doing decimals, I'll do 7.5, I guess. But I would normally probably do 7. And I know exactly what Gordo was saying. I just find it hard to. It's like going into yeah. They had a minute limit.
Sorry, Sergi, we're not doing that now.
Sergi, I knew I'd get my chance here to speak as long as I wanted.
We make the rules over here in the morning.
Gordo's playing 4D chess here because he knows he won't be able to do the show, so might as well do it here.
I'll do 7, and maybe you can twist my arm for 7.5, only because I realize, like I said, I totally agree with what Gordo was saying in the beginning. If he gave me the end of the season and said this is the results in September, I would probably grade the season like an 8 and stuff like, or maybe even a 9 because mission accomplished, right? But you look at, like sometimes you go into a test, right? And you're like, all I need is a C. Let's just pass and move on. Right. But then it goes really well. You're like, man, I should be able to ace this. And then you come out, you get a B-. You're like, damn it, man, I should have done better with that. I mean, it's still better than what you expected. But I get that same feeling where mid-season, maybe it's because of the way things collapsed and how fast they collapsed. That kind of like bugs me because I really think, like, I understand like the call, for example, that went against us. And there was a bunch of them this year. But, I mean, not being able to beat that shit United side still bugs the hell out of me. In multiple occasions where we let them ruin our
2 weeks. Yeah, and then Palace and then Everton. Like, it just...
Yeah. That's what really bugs me. It's just the way it's collapsed and how it's collapsed. So I'll go with a 7. You got to be happy knowing these were the expectations. These were like the high expectations we put for this. But once things started, those expectations went up a lot, and not just because we were like dreaming dreams, we were headed that way. But when it collapses, I don't know, it's hard for me to go back up to like 8s and 9s and stuff like that. So I'll go with a clean 7.5.
Yeah, I went with 7.5 too, for the record.
That was well under a minute for me, by the way. Well under. In Timuchin minutes.
Yeah. In Celsius.
In Celsius. Young player of the season. It was a two-way battle between Kwanzaa and Harvey Elliott. I know someone threw in a Connor Bradley there.
I'd say Connor Bradley. And my justification for that is I think we have found someone that everyone he severely overachieved, I believe. He was a huge reason in why I think everyone got their hopes up around that February, March standpoint. And I think now we know that we have somebody at right back that can fill in when we need to. So I would say, because like we knew Harvey Elliott was a baller, right? He did a great job, but like we already knew that he was a baller. Kwanzaa kind of got his opportunities because of injuries, and I don't think that, with all the rotations, I still didn't feel as confident in his ability as I did when Connor Bradley was out there. It was almost like, let's see how Kwanzaa does today. Whereas Connor Bradley, I wasn't even paying attention at a position. It's like when you see McAllister's name on a team sheet, you're not thinking like, oh, I wonder if he's going to have a good game today.
Mhm.
It's just, it's McAllister. He's going to fill in that spot. Whereas like Kwanzaa, I was always like, hopefully today's his on day, because like he had a couple of off days. Where Connor Bradley, I was way more confident in him when he was on the pitch.
It's kind of a testament as well to how disappointing, and we'll get to disappointing players, how disappointing Konate was this year, that he essentially got his spot taken from him from someone who's super as hit or miss as Kwanzaa. Tim.
I'll go Kwanzaa.
One second.
I like the Bradley shouts. I just don't think it's enough games, perhaps. Maybe that's why I gauge it like that. I don't think he played nowhere near as many minutes. And, still because of, his age and maybe like his strength and stuff like that, I don't think we ever got 90 minutes from Bradley. I think we always had to take him out at 60 and stuff like that. But I mean, it was a pleasant surprise for Bradley. And honestly, for Harvey, it's weird. I think we talked about this on Monday too, where I don't even consider, he's been around so long. Like I did not even think of him as an option for a young player, even though he's only 21, right? So automatically when we said like young player for the vote, mine went to Kwanzaa and then Bradley, and maybe like some of those kids that showed up around the FA Cup stage. The League Cup stage. But I will probably go with Kwanzaa just because of the number of minutes he played. And at the end, even though the player that would normally be there was available, he was still starting. Whereas Bradley, obviously once Trent came in, he moved to the side. That's more probably on Konate than Bradley maybe. But, I just like the fact that how he played. I think Ryan was saying, though, that, he will start next year next to Verge. I hope not, because I am not that confident if you go into a season with Kwanzaa as your starting center back on the right.
Yeah, and the fact that if Kwanzaa is starting, it means we didn't get center back depth, which is suicidal at this point.
Yeah, and I don't know if you can get a left-sided one. I mean, obviously you got all off season to speculate and see what happens, but I don't know if we can get a left-hand sided one, especially with Verge staying, especially if he signs an extension and stuff. Because I'm assuming nobody of high caliber at least would like to sit behind Verge.
Right.
But still, I would. Oh, Ryan says, I hope not too. I just see it happen. I do sadly see it possibly happening. I just would not be very confident if that's how we're entering the season as like an ideal starting 11 kind of situation. So
we're pissing off Sir Z so early in the morning with the young player and the rookie of the year debate. So
the MVP.
Yeah, next time I'll be more specific on the parameters, but unsung hero of the season. Quite a mixed bag here. I think Maka gave a John Octoberg shout.
I heard
for
that,
unsung hero of the season. Yeah. So who do you guys have?
Yeah, that one feels like he knew that everyone was going to say Gomez, so he had to just think of someone random.
Right. He had a pretty good justification, though, Gordon.
That's yeah. I mean, okay, yeah.
I guess, yeah. I'll give him the justification, but
I'd say Gomez for sure. I mean, this is a player that almost every season for the last 5 years, every summer, I'm like, that was the last time we'd ever see him play. That was the last time we ever seen him play. That was the last time we ever seen him play. And he's been here, and he's been here, and he's been here. And then this year, would he play like 7 different positions? I think at the end of the year, I think it was in 7 different. He was used. He was used as a midfielder, a defensive midfielder. He was used on the right. He was used on the left. He was used on both center back positions. I think he played goalie for 3 games. Like he was all over the place, and he was solid. Like he was kind of the glue that was holding everybody together. I think because it was definitely one of those popsicle stick bridges that you build. That was our season really, and he was the glue.
He even filled in for Achtenberg for a couple of games. I thought, like, was coaching the goalies. I think it's Gomez. Ryan says, his second is Keller. I mean, like, those are probably 2 names I would consider. The thing that makes Gomez's performance a bit more special for me is, number one, I've been a Gomez apologist for years now because I think he just gets flack unnecessarily. Like, something will happen when he was playing left back. We'll get a goal from the other side, and they'll be like, it was somehow Gomez's fault, kind of an ordeal. But no, I think with Gomez, the thing that Gordo said in terms of like Kelleher came in and played his position filled in. I mean, I guess it's not his fault. He can't play defense and stuff either. But we use Gomez all over the place, kind of like we did with Milner. He was like a younger version of Milner where he could be used anyway. And I thought he did pretty darn good wherever we put him, right back, left back, which are not really normally his positions. He should be a center back. He was one of, like, when we had that duo with him and Van Dijk, I mean, that was like, hey, we were set for years is what we were thinking at the time. Defensive mid and stuff like that. Everything he did, I thought he did extremely well on top of it. So, yeah, it has to be Gomez. Kazi picked Costas. Yes, there were some crazy trying to get out of the norm. People trying to get out of the box. Just
wait till you hear some of the picks for player of the season. We had two very surprising picks for player of the season, mind you guys. Goal of the season, which I believe it was Virgil's winner in the Carabao Cup final that won the day for this one.
Too much. I'll let you go first with this one.
Damn you. I was going to go with Verge, but when I look back, when you say, okay, if you say goal of the season, this is why. Who came up with these categories and didn't specify the specifics?
What a joke. What a joke.
Like, in terms of like how incredible the goal was, it's probably Mac's goal against Fulham, because that's a very, very tough one. In terms of impact, I don't know why, but Verge's goal, it was more disbelief when that happened. It reminds me of, like, you remember that goal that Curtis Jones scored against Everton? He's been trying to duplicate it since, and it's probably cracked 100 shots. That happened, like where he's trying to curve it, and that goal went in. Like, I couldn't even celebrate like crazy because it was more disbelief, like that. Like, you shitting me? This is really happening, kind of a moment. But the goal, like, I go back and look at the season that I celebrated like crazy, is probably Nunez's goal against Newcastle. So in terms of that, so I gave you three different answers based on the flavor you're looking for in goal of the season. Yeah, and I'll pass it back to you, Gordo.
Those were two of the options as well, two of the other choices. Nunez against Newcastle and Nunez against Forest. Yeah, Forest.
Yeah, the Nunez Newcastle one is good. I'd say the Trent free kick, the first game against City, when that was his celebration when he just that was the one that I was like, yes.
It's kind of,
that's what I mean. Like the Newcastle, like I could not do that with Virgil's goal. It was just more like no way kind of a thing. Like it was more of a shock than anything else. Like, is this really happening? Kind of a deal. But in terms of impact, I mean, it literally won us a trophy. So
won us a trophy. Pretty good choices though. I mean, it's all dependent on what you feel. Made you feel the best. So which is what I feel made the award really, great, because I'm expecting a lot of varying choices. I think Gally picked Nunez against Bournemouth in the cup. That curler that he did from outside the box,
which was on the left.
Yeah, because I mean that goal had me feeling some sort of things as well about Nunez. Like, oh boy, like, is this finally the coming?
And then he's offside flags later.
Yeah.
He's a Cersei, cover your kids' ears. He's like that girlfriend that gives really good BJ, but she's fucking insane.
I mean,
every once in a while you get one of those Hummers and you're like, wow, I could do this. I think I can do it.
Oh, man. Yeah, I hope Cersei's kid is nowhere around there. I hope he's not like, I feel you, brother, or something either.
Favorite game of the season?
Oh, man.
This varied. I think the consensus winner was 4-3 against Fulham.
Yeah, see, I was pissed that game.
I don't like when it's like that.
Like, stop free. Can we defend, for God's sakes, is where I'm at when we like win games like that. I think I go with the Newcastle game. I think it's easy to pick the Chelsea game because of the result and the scope of things. But again, I go back to a game where I celebrated, and I almost like games where after the game ends, you're so tired, it feels like you freaking played, for God's sakes. And I can only think of the Newcastle game. The Fulham game, it was exciting and stuff, but I was more pissed at like some of the ways we were conceding, but that's just a defender in me, probably. Gordo, what do you have?
The game I think that got the most reaction. I know, like most of the time.
I was gonna say the 5-second lead time by the time Cersei's like, "Wait, what?" Like, it's just like...
All right, there should be a countdown in the corner. Gordon's about to say something inappropriate. I think excited is mostly taken as like a positive, but I think the game that kind of got the most reaction from me was the Spurs loss. So I'd say that's probably one of the most memorable games in terms of like how long after we were talking about it, how like basically that offsides call was not just like reverberated within England even or the Premier League. It was around the world. Like people that I know that like don't follow the EPL, but like really like either the Bundesliga or God forbid just watch the MLS. I don't know how anybody does that and calls himself a real soccer fan, but like they all heard about it, right? It was like the shot heard around the world. The good process, boys. Like that was probably one of the most exciting games in terms of that. So I'll go negative for that one.
I believe someone went with the Spurs game as well, and Kazi got on his ass. Like it was like the Spurs game. Really, I was absolutely fuming after that game. And
that's the thing. I think if it's ended with a tie, I think the pride that I felt like watching that team hang in there with what we had and almost actually like being able to score and stuff like that again. But just the way it ended was such a downer.
Yeah, especially like Ryan says, like Matip was the player of the match when that went in. I turned to my wife, who really doesn't care, but I was like,
who doesn't care you turn, or who doesn't care who messes?
Either. She doesn't even care if I'm there. The fact that I exist annoys her sometimes.
Like you're still here?
But like, I was like, I could handle that having 9 men and giving up an own goal in the last minutes. But why did it have to come off of Matip? He did not deserve that. It could have came off anybody else. It was a rough one.
Yeah, it was a rough one. And kind of getting some war flashbacks.
And you made it the game of the season.
No.
The game of the season.
Exciting. You said the most exciting.
Game of the season for Gordon's giving me war flashbacks, man. Like,
it's kind of like that chick. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Okay, here we go. Player to watch for next season, and I gave probably the most predictable response here, so I won't elaborate any further. So let's go with
the word. I'm sorry, I missed the
player to watch for next season. Tim's like
Gravenberg.
Yeah, fucking Gravenberg.
That's a really hard one because the tactics are going to change a little bit.
We had some Nunez's, we had some Szoboszlai's.
I'm not excited to see that
in any formation.
If I get to December and go, oh yeah, he's on the team, then I'll be happy.
One of these days, we got to hook you up with a show with Anand, Gordon.
Yeah.
Like, everyone talks about how Kazi and him are always, differing. I feel like you and him are just about as big a contrast as himself and Kazi. But I'm sorry. Go.
I don't want to be, because I feel like if I watch him, I'm going to be really, really upset. I don't know. I honestly think McAllister, because let's just hope that he gets played where he's supposed to get played, because every little glimpse of a number 8, like a free roaming, old Steven Gerrard, do whatever you want at the top, lead the attack from midfield. Mm-hmm. If we see him consistently under Slot's tactics, then I think that he's going to be the most exciting, because I think he was one of the best players this season for us.
Yeah.
And he was playing a number 6, which he had to learn this year. So I think he'd be the most exciting, because I think he can definitely go up 1 or 2 gears from what we've seen.
I'll go with Szoboszlai, just because I almost feel like McAllister, I had him in running for my player of the season. I already kind of know what we're going to get from him on a regular basis, especially like Gordo is saying, he plays where his natural position is. Whereas Szoboszlai, we saw glimpses of what can be. and then kind of like, fizzled down a lot and obviously lost the starting spot and stuff like that. With the new formation and stuff like that, can we bring out the guy that we are? Because in the beginning, anytime it's similar like to when McAllister got the ball. Every time they got the ball, it was like, man, this is going to be special. This is going to be special. Like every time they did something. So Szoboszlai is probably the one. I think he will probably benefit a lot more from the new system as well, if we go with like what we've seen so far from Slot and stuff like that. But yeah, I have high hopes in him bouncing back. I almost like him in this underdog rule, like as opposed to the next Gerard is here kind of a role. So
yeah, something to prove, chip on his shoulder. Yeah.
Well, great segue actually from Szoboszlai. Most disappointing player is what we have next. Nunez and Szoboszlai, I believe, were the top choices.
He's giving you the answer within the question there, Gordo. Go for it.
Yeah,
it's like a peach. You just threw it up there.
I'll pull a Kazi and say John Achterberg. No, I'm just kidding.
Is it 2012 again? John Achterberg getting flagged for some reason.
I want to say Nunez because that's like the most frustrating.
I'm not gonna bite.
Yeah, I mean it's maybe Diaz's production, right? So he was phenomenal in terms of what he gave us, right? He was like the dirt cow engine of the top. I definitely think that you have to kind of ignore the last 6-7 weeks because we literally overused him. Like a player that plays at that intensity throughout the game, like really does need a couple of days break, or like, in one of the competitions maybe doesn't start, where I felt like he was doing everything right except his finishing. And you could say the same about Nunez, except the offsides thing puts him way over the top for me. I cannot stand a player that is that fast, that faces a defender.
Yeah.
Should not be offsides. You are a number 9. You should never be offsides if you're I get the offsides when the defender's at your back, but looking down the line, and knowing you're faster than 98% of the league, you should never be offsides, and that's what tips Nunez over for me. But I think the most disappointing for me was Diaz's finishing.
Tim?
See, poor Diaz. I'll go with Konate.
Oh, don't worry, Tim. He got 2 player of the season votes, so he's fine.
To be fair, one of them was Anand, I think, so I don't know if that even counts. But no, I go with Konate just because, I mean, it's pretty, by the way, telling that when we look at the second half of the season and we're like on each other's throats over who was more disappointing, I think that just shows the total collapse of the squad in like the last 2-3 months or whatever. I mean, you can go Diaz, Nunez, Mo, Szoboszlai, like you can just like take your pick kind of a deal. And Konate, I would say Konate just because, I mean, losing your starting spot that you should be a shoo-in for, especially with Matip out of the picture, you should be out there every week.
Technically, he lost it to Matip as well to start the season, right?
Yes. And honestly, like I've always preferred Matip, especially when we're home playing against the low block. I wanted Konate out there. But I mean, like in that Atalanta game, not being able to win one header over Samaga and stuff. I mean, I don't know. Like he had like a really, really poor season to what we're, like accustomed to. And I know it's harder for a defender to pull. Like Nunez, you can still see him like winning us some games and some points and stuff like that. And I know that's harder to do as a defender, to be able to show that, hey, I did this as well. But yeah, I think in terms of performance, I would have to say probably Konate was the most disappointing, losing your spot basically to a kid that we're basically saying, hey, like the surprise of the season, young player of the season and stuff. But Konate really opened the door for him. I mean, kudos to Kwanzaa for smashing that door down and running in. But I mean, Konate was holding that door open to anybody and everybody who was willing. It felt, it's just like, come on in.
He made the French team, didn't he? He's on the short list for Euros, right?
Konate, I think he's in the first batch. He's with them right now, but I don't know if he'll make the final. I mean, I don't know how France is doing this, but they're like a center back factory suddenly. Like and young too, not like so. I don't know if he'll end up going in the final squad. He might by reputation and, being in the system and stuff like that. But it can't be by form. That's what
he played well. He played really well in the World Cup. So maybe he bounces back and we get a better season from him.
Hopefully, the whole injury prone thing doesn't help though, does it? Like
no, especially at that age.
Yeah, if he's getting like a good run and then like he tweaks something, like it's just back to square one. Yeah.
Of course, running back and forth trying to cover for Trent can't be helping that, but that's
another show.
I haven't taken one of those shots in a while, so
we should have a dedicated show like Timuchin's Trent rant, and then that's just the show. Like that's like 1 hour, man. That's like 1 hour. Final category, guys, and this is the most obvious: player of the season. I believe the consensus there. So this one actually went to a tie twice.
Yes,
between Verge and McAllister, I believe, right, Tim?
Yes.
So someone changed their vote and ended up tying it again. So and Verge ended up winning. For the record, my vote was still for McAllister. Just
for player of the season.
Yes.
Yeah, it's. For me, it'd be a tie. Well, I've already given Gomez something. And I've given McAllister something. But I think in terms of
this is like he's like the Oscars. You already won the
I didn't choose a minority yet, so no. I think based on this is gonna be so hard to talk. If you don't play the game right, if you only play FIFA, you can switch those guys around, and the team pretty much works the same if you are good at playing FIFA. Whereas, like in real life, even though he's just moving from the top of the diamond to the bottom of the diamond, the spatial difference and the requirements are an incredible thing to learn after you've already established yourself as a pro. And what McAllister did in a 6, and yes, I can count on 2 hands the number of times that he gave the ball away that either led to a good chance or a goal. But you also have to understand how difficult that is for a player to come into a new team with a brand new midfield and then to play a position that you have never played before and have never shown, like going offensive to defensive is completely different. Your responsibilities change, how far you can go up the pitch. It just your spatial awareness totally changes. And I think it was really impressive because he was probably in the top 5 for center defending midfielders in the Premier League in terms of his output. And that's of all teams, all 20 teams, every central defender. Center midfielder. He's probably in top 5 for his production rates.
Yeah, that's exactly my justification for choosing Mac as well. Like the unfamiliarity. Like we all had the feeling that Verge would bounce back somehow, some way, but he ended up winning, and the reasons people gave as to why he's player of the season are pretty justified too. So I feel like you can't go wrong here if you choose either one.
Yeah, I kind of almost I started with Mac and I listened to people's explanation of why they picked Verge. I was like, okay, I could go with Verge. I think I was initially the same as Godo and said Mac. Mainly because you just saw, you watch him play and you almost see the future at the same time. It's like a weird feeling like, oh my God, this is going to be great kind of a thing, just watching this guy for years to come. So I think he gives you that more positivity and optimism along with watching him play. And he has scored a lot of goals and contributed like a lot of assists and stuff like that. I just go with Van Dijk just more because of the consistency. And I actually disagree. I did not think he would get back to this level. I was worried he would not get back to this level after the injury.
You usually don't. Knee injuries usually do not.
So for him to get back and readjust and then, slowly gain his speed and agility back and stuff like that too, I'll have to go with Van Dijk because he probably started every game but 2 or something like that, probably anyway.
As always,
just on consistency alone, I'll probably go with him because there were some games, and it's not Mac's fault because I think what Gordo says, that's a huge ordeal. That's why I think Gomez is the unsung hero. right back to left back, it's not just another back. It's like night and day. Everything
Mhm.
changes. And then, going to defensive mid and stuff like that. So same thing, attack into defensive mid. A lot of those mistakes he's made, like the balls he's lost and turned over, it's because he's not used to getting that ball there in that situation with that pressure coming on him, because he's probably going to be more up the pitch and maybe have more options aside from like the center back he's facing and the goalie he's facing. So, but I still go with Verge, maybe because I'm pleasantly surprised that we got, I don't know, 90% of the old Verge back. And I thought we were never going above 70%.
I give him marks down because he did not adequately get the team prepared for Manchester United and Everton. I feel like no, Verge. I think like,
why is it on Verge?
He's the captain. You have to.
Why is that not on Klopp? Why is that on Verge? Why is it Verge's job to get to? I know what you're saying. We go to the captain, but I feel like this is when like Klopp, because this is going to be great. Players must love in some ways to see Klopp go and have somebody else come in, because next season, this time of year, it's going to be Arnie's fault. It's not going to be Verge's fault.
I think because, like, as a manager, you hear all of them. It's kind of like a broken record. Like, we take every game the same. We prepare the same. Whether it's Burnley, whether it's City, we prepare exactly the same. And as a manager, to earn respect in any situation, not just being a football manager, but just being a manager of people in general, if you say something to media or to the uppers and then you turn around and do something totally different, you lose a little bit of respect. So maybe Jurgen does approach all the games identically. There's no change. There's no, he's not freaking the players out, heightened here and low here. He wants the same intensity every game. And I feel like it's the captain's job to really gee the players up and say, this is not just a regular game. I don't give a shit where Everton are on the table. I don't care where the terrible season that United's having. This is a game. This is their season. To destroy our FA Cup run is all they have to hope for. And for Everton to destroy our title challenge was all they had to play for, because at that point they'd kind of already saved themselves. And so I don't feel like the team approached those games with the right intensity. And obviously we got burned in both of them.
Yeah, see, I feel like that's harsh, because if I go to Van Dijk, if I'm Van Dijk, he's probably going to be like, it's not my freaking fault Nunez is offside half the time and Mo and Diaz can't finish sitters. What I do in the back is not going to help them finish up top. If you look at those games, really what we've struggled with is really finishing. Like, if we score goals, games change with goals. So, I mean, obviously that's like stating the obvious, but in terms of how we play afterwards changes too. A couple of those games where if we score, easiest game of the season is probably Villa at home, which I never thought was going to happen. And it all starts with like an early goal from Szoboszlai, a great shot. So a lot of those games where we really struggled, like the United game, if we get that second goal, that game is over. We're talking about another 4-0, 5-0 and stuff like that. And then, Nunez gives out the ball. And then who was the second? Kwanzaa gives out the ball and stuff. I don't know. I just find that I know what you're saying in terms of like the captain waking everybody up sometimes. I just find it's hard in some ways to put it on Van Dijk. But, I know what you're saying about the captaincy. I hear that.
Yeah, that was all the awards. Mm-hmm.
That was all the awards?
Yeah, that was everything.
Yeah, that was the entire freaking show. Let's get to some headlines real quick.
Yeah, two of us took 45 minutes, and John somehow managed, 10 of you guys to keep it in an hour?
There was a strict 1 minute, to be fair, right? There was a strict 1 minute.
It's this coffee. It's making me...
Yeah.
Sparky says games change with goals, but we can't go and see goals in the first 20 minutes and expect to win. I never understand. See, this is what I don't get. And really, I can't wait for the season and see how the entire narrative changes. If we're starting every game like that, why is that not on Klopp? Why was that never on Klopp? Maybe if your manager doesn't go around constantly complain about early games, we don't play like shit on early games. If it's about mentality, maybe your manager should not go around and complain about it nonstop so that the team doesn't go out there with the mentality of like, here we go again, an early game kind of a thing. I just don't understand why Van Dijk is the guilty one of us conceding goals. I just don't understand.
Style doesn't help too, where we have a really high line where the CBs are always exposed. which is something that might change under Arnie, right? Like,
Yeah, I forgot, by the way, Cersei just blames Linders because, anything bad comes from Linders. Anything good comes from Club. Who, by the way, we didn't, I don't know, we'll probably not get to it, but he had his yet another farewell, yes. And this is the very last farewell. I think I have seen approximately 20 last interviews. But this was like the last because he came back for this, for like one last celebration / farewell kind of thing. And he said some telling things. I love the fact how it's being reported to. He semi-praised FSG in terms of how the club is run, but that was translated into a headline as he's bashing the other owners of like Chelsea and United. But nobody wanted to say, because he actually did praise FSG and how they run the club. It was more like he takes a jab at the other ones kind of a thing. God forbids FSG gets praised. Kelleher says, the next step for me is to be a number one. I know he's not going to be a number one greatest stat because I already got that fucking spot. But he wants to be a number one keeper. And I can see Edwards cashing in on this one, John. Name a price.
30. 35.
Good goalkeepers. Where's the
35 to 40?
Think about how many goalkeepers that you'd take as a starter that are available or aren't pinned down with a contract at the moment. I think we can get a lot for him because of that.
Yeah, I'm going 35 to 40 because I feel like the sample size, like sure last year kind of bolstered it, right?
Yeah.
But then his sample size in terms of consistent game time isn't as big as teams would want it to be. Like last year really helped with that, but then seasons prior and stuff like that, I'm going with that. He always came in as a number 2 as an emergency option, and then there are some moments where I feel like he does look a bit shaky because we all obviously hold our players into such a high regard, and I don't know. Maybe it's because I played keeper a bit. I'm not high on the Keller hype train as people usually are. So I think 35-40, I'd take that and run.
I think his disadvantage has always been obvious. He's, what we consider like world's number one's backup. You can argue Courtois and Alisson and stuff like that, but he's behind him. So I almost feel like it's kind of like slightly unfair when a goal is conceded and Keller is in goal. We're probably analyzing it a lot more than when Alisson is in goal. But there are times where, or we say Alisson could have done better on that one too. But then kind of like they do the blame pie. Whereas if Keller concedes it, we don't say, well, was that the Atalanta goal where he could have probably come out, but he kind of like waited on his line for the guy to just like, take the shots. Normally we'd be like, why are they letting that cross in and stuff like that? But because Keller was in goal, the entire focus was on him not being able to stop it. By the way, Cersei is going like crazy over here with like 50 million. I guess my biggest thing is Gordo, he's not going to a team that can afford to spend, I would guess, 50 or so, like 40, 50. I would love a 40. I'm thinking more like 30 because I don't think he's a number one on a team that is willing to spend 40, 50 on a starter.
Well, that is a good point because you think that anybody willing to spend that probably already has a keeper pinned down.
Right.
Anybody who can afford to say, because because you're getting him as a number one. He has to be going somewhere, not to compete, but probably as a shoe-in number one. Somebody who's selling their number one, retiring their number one, whatever. I just don't know, throw a team out there that will be like, we'll spend 50 on a starting goalkeeper, whether they're homegrown or they're home or whatever.
Yeah, the ones that I'd look at for that to pay out to shell anything more than 40 is a team that's like recently gotten into Europe, so like has a thin squad, goalkeeper that's not reliable, and I'm trying to think of because that's usually when you see goalies move, right? It's like when you're looking to create some depth in your team, bring in some more players, because like stuff like Newcastle happens where you make Champions League for the first time and then you finish last and then you have a terrible season in your domestic league because you just don't have the squad depth for it, which I'm I'm sure is probably going to happen to Villa as well. So we'll see. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of any teams that come out. I can see him going to like Italy or Germany or something, but I can't see any of those teams that I'm thinking of paying more than 40 for him.
Yeah, that's another thing. I mean, where is a good spot for him, John? I mean, I still think, it would be Premier League or Championship, which, automatically obviously affects how much you're going to get for him. I would think like a lower table Premier League team, because if he's moving, he has to be pretty much a shoe-in for one or the favorite to be one on the team that he goes to.
Sir Z says Chelsea. I don't think it's a bad shout. Although I don't think that our owners, our front office would want to be doing any business with Chelsea after what happened.
They're coming around with 50, 60, like the way Klopp spends money.
Guess,
I'd be like, take him.
Yeah, that's true.
I think Spurs is a good shout too. Although they have a good goalie.
They just signed him, didn't they? And
they just signed him. But then in terms of having 2 number ones and they're going to Europe, not necessarily a bad thing, I would say.
But if you're spending 20, yeah. But if you're spending 50, if I'm spending 50 on a goalie, I'm kind of probably expecting him to be the starter, not just challenge the big guy kind of a thing. Because I probably didn't spend 50 on the guy that he's challenging. Like, how many goalies are 50 in the first place for him to challenge?
Aston Villa, maybe. Martinez is kind of injury prone, right?
Unless they sell Martinez, that can be a situation, right? They sell Martinez to somebody for 80, then they can come back and spend 40, 50. So you gotta, you still have a capable goalie, but you actually made money on the deal to invest on something else.
Sorry, Gordon.
No, I think the thing is, he knows he's going to get minutes at Liverpool. He's just not going to be a starter. So you can't put him at somewhere like Spurs because he's going to have to compete. It sounds like if I'm going to move, I want to be number one, like guaranteed. And I don't think he gets that at Spurs. I don't think he gets that anywhere in the Premier League. I agree with like what everyone's saying. Like he'd fit in it. He's better than Nick Pope. He's definitely better than Onana. I just don't see him going because those clubs have invested money in those guys, and they're not going to willingly give him a number one spot. And so he's already got that here. Why would he leave?
Do we know he's better than Pope or Onana?
That's what I'm saying. Kind of like the sample size, right? Isn't as big as you'd like it to be, right?
Like I would take Pope over Kelleher as my backup.
It depends on what you're looking for a keeper, I guess. Because if he's gonna be playing on a team that's gonna have 80% of the ball, I'd take him like in a heartbeat. But if you're gonna be playing, for example, a United who concedes the most shots in a Premier League season,
I mean, it's unfair to judge. I don't think Onana is that great, but I don't think he's that bad when he plays in a team.
Right.
Like I don't know how many goals Kelleher concedes if he's in the United goal this season. When you're getting the most shots, like you said.
No, yeah, and I won't have him at United because I think if Kelleher has a weakness, sometimes his positioning and shot stopping are a bit, contrary to Alisson, not as good, I would say. But I think there are moments where he's better on his feet actually than Alisson is. So a team that plays really expansive, I think, is where he'll thrive.
That's going to be interesting to see. But yeah, I mean, hey, I would kill for 40, 50, but I don't think we're getting even Edwards. I don't think is getting more than 30 for him is my guess, but I guess we'll find out. Here's another one that I want to kind of like touch on before I know this is going to be like a long topic to kind of probably jump onto this late, but so we had a similar situation that you had shared in the Discord, Gordo, with United's and what's the team in France?
Nice.
Yes, they're connected to. And then there's a similar thing over here with Girona and Champions League and City being in there at the same time. I don't know. I mean, to me, it feels like somebody has to do some accounting in the background, some creative accounting to make it work at the end of the day. Because I think FIFA, as crooked as they are, and UFA, know this is the future where these big clubs are going to own some other small feeder clubs. And it's just a matter of we're going to have to do the accounting differently to go bypass these laws because now your feeder club is doing too freaking good.
Well, and the United one is a little interesting because like Nice isn't really a small club.
Yeah.
Like you'd probably venture that 80% of their seasons they're going to make either Champions League or Europa League. And United is the other one, so that one doesn't make sense. The City and
You have a
Girona.
better chance of Nice making Europe than United, to be fair.
Yeah, and like the City Girona one is different, right? That one makes a little more sense. And
Yeah.
Girona just had like a really, really good season. I mean, they were title challenging in the middle of the year with Barcelona and Real Madrid. So that was kind of I think that was a shock. But UEFA is giving them until I think it's June 6th to divest in Girona in order for them to go on. Now, here's the thing. You have juggernauts in terms of the last 7 years, 8 years in City, or this team that has actually played very well and given them. They've only been in La Liga for 4 seasons, and now they're in the Champions League. How could you take that away from this club?
Yeah.
That is ridiculous. And I'm not saying like UEFA, because I think it's a little shady, and I agree with UEFA that you shouldn't be able to own multiple clubs because there's a conflict of interest. Imagine if you get to the knockout stages and then what happens? Now we got to watch. We got to watch like who the manager or who the owner likes better. Like that's bogus. So I agree with UEFA. I'm saying, how could you take this away from them for Manchester City, the organization? Because I think they have to divest. But I agree with you, Timuchin. There has to be a better solution because it's going to just continue to happen. It sounds like Liverpool are putting their toes in the water. I'd imagine that if there's any way that you'd possibly be able to lose money playing football, United and Chelsea are going to find a way to do it, and they'll be in on it as well in the near future. And so it's definitely going to be the new outlook of world football. So there has to be a bigger solution. But in the short term, I really hope that City divest in Girona because I think that they deserve Champions League.
I don't know. See, this is why interesting what John's take is going to be. Because 30 years ago, when I was a young buck, I would have probably been like, oh, snap, this is going to get juicy and stuff. Now, the old bastard, the cynical guy in me says, yeah, they're just going to make another company that says Hoopla Boopla Incorporated.
Oh, yeah.
And they're going to buy the 17% because I think they can only do 30% is the rule. So it's 47 right now. Hoopla Boopla Incorporated is going to buy 17%. They're just going to go. But that's the cynic in me. John, what will happen? What do you expect to come out of this?
I feel like since it's heavily publicized and, the stuff that Gordo's saying where it's like an unprecedented achievement for certain teams, I feel like there's going to be pressure on, for example, City to divest in the team. And I feel like it's just the right thing to do. But then we're talking about City, right? So I don't think that applies to them. I was thinking when Gordo was explaining his whole side of things, would it be possible to make a sort of rule where, granted, obviously they'd be making all these dummy companies, but I guess it's a start, right? Anyone who's affiliated with any company that's affiliated with, let's say, FSG or, the City Group are unable to invest on a football team that is within the continent. Like it's only limited. You're only allowed to invest on teams that are, let's say, who play here in America, who would only qualify for competitions for continental tournaments within their region.
Like you never play them.
Yeah, you never play them. There's never a chance unless it's a friendly. Like I feel like that can be a solution, but then Tim brought the whole dummy company thing, which unfortunately is a very it's a perfect.
It might already be happening, right? Like
Yeah.
we don't. You could probably. I could see Chelsea having 7 or 8 clubs.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be like, oh, no, that's my cousin's company. I have nothing to... I actually hate that guy and stuff. And then he just happened to buy 17% of it, and we move on. I just put a new company under my cousin's name who's going to buy the 17%. Because really, South America is the only place they can go to, right? And
Asia?
Is buying a club in Asia a good investment though? Like, it has to be an investment at the same time. And it's also like a breeding ground for your talents. I can understand maybe in the,
Japanese
Brazil
league
or
is
Argentina or something like that. In those leagues, you can have a team because you got to be challenging your guy. Like if you have a talent there, you got to be challenging him. He can't be playing in a league in Peru and be like, he's really good. It's like, no, he's not. Like, we don't even know. So it has to be somehow playing in a competitive league and in like a good environment where you can develop. And even then, they can play in Club World Cup. So I just threw that in there. And yes, this goes back to improving your game and proving yourself, Ryan. And that's not happening over here either. Like, it has to be. There's a reason why the old people with high wages get loaned to Turkey and Greece, and the young players get loans that you want to develop into Netherlands and Germany and Belgium and stuff like that, because they feel they're going to actually develop there, as opposed to, basically just picking up their wages and picking up the tab for you when you loan them to a team in like Turkey and stuff like that. That's more like a financial decision. The other one, I think, is a more development decision. But I mean, I don't see it going away. Do you guys? I mean, we created a whole new department and titles in Liverpool to be able to do this. One of the biggest things Edwards came back for, Gordo, was to be able to head this operation of, doing it.
Yeah, it's the new way. I mean, it's going to take. It's become so much of a business, right? So like they're gonna, if it makes them money and they could use it for, moving pieces. Like somebody like Edwards likes a big chessboard with a lot of pieces that he can move and manipulate. And, the extra clubs is something that they would love to do. It's like you said, it's a place where they could, cheaply move players between each other, get experience, and also like corner markets on certain people and, snatch somebody up on a younger team to develop them there and then move them over to Liverpool if they show any promise. So it's going to be the way forward. And it's slowly, like we are, whether we like it or not, we are slowly pricing out the regular teams, the homegrown teams. And that's part of the reason, like what I always talk about it on here. And I know I'm beating a dead horse because I've said it so many times, but I was so against the Super League, and as the year have gone on, since it was announced, I'm like more and more of like, just make a Super League, get them the fuck out of the regular leagues, and they can do their Harlem Globetrotter World Tour and like leave the other clubs to themselves. Like we are slowly pricing teams out. I mean, I think like this year, like John's Farmer League comment, I know it got a lot of slack, but like look at the disparity. Right, between Burnley's season in the Championship last year and Burnley's season this year. All three teams come up, all three teams go down. We used to talk about 40 points being safety. None of those teams even got 30 this year.
Yeah.
I think that shows you, we are pushing those teams out.
So it just says a lot of commercial profit in Asia still untapped. Yeah, that's what the Chinese league thought, but we haven't heard from them in a while. I think, maybe, to go buy property or invest in companies and stuff like that, but not to send players to, I think, in terms of getting them developed or
it has a lot to do with TV
in value. What was that, Gordo?
It has a lot to do with TV rights, like, interest in viewership, which is why the MLS is kind of an interesting take for some of these clubs because like it or not, people still watch that. But
well, there's a reason why everybody is picking up the tab for Messi. And Messi has this in his contract for the TV rights because some people are just gonna watch it. These young kids, John, you know how it is. They watch players, not teams.
Right. Hey, I'm guilty of that, especially on the basketball side of things.
Really? Wait. Spill the beans.
He's already.
I've already spilled the beans.
Yeah, but spilled the beans. I mean, now you got it. I mean, now you have a team.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You wouldn't change it now.
It's different, and it's unfortunate because hearing all this, looking at these pieces of news, one of the reasons why I keep, going back. For those who don't watch the NBA, it's arguably at its competitive best now, where there are a lot of teams competing against each other in terms of like you won't know who's going to win the title. Like right now, Dallas can freaking make the finals and they're the 5th seed, right? And that's something that I'm going to be missing, I guess, in terms of the sport for football, where it's leading towards. Like we're fortunate enough to be Liverpool fans, where our team is probably, going to be competing for the honors here and every day. I'm not going to bite Tim. you shouldn't put that there. But
Marky keeps throwing it out there.
Yeah, he keeps throwing it out there like
worms.
Yeah. Next season when Gravenberg is lighting the league on fire, I'll be here. Don't worry. I'll be here.
German league, the Bundesliga.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just upset that the competitive balance is slowly but surely just going away every single day. Like it was there before, right?
Was
But
it though?
it like it was there before in terms of like the disparity, right? In terms of the bigger teams and the smaller teams now, but then now I feel like it's just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, which is what led me to the whole Farmers League comment. It's like a frustration for me, where obviously I support a big team, but you got to give the little guy a chance every once in a while. Like that Leicester thing, where 16,000 their odds. I think it's gonna be 32,000 now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think
it's
that's the biggest thing. Like there was, I mean, it's soccer. Anything can happen on any given day, kind of a deal. And there was always, I mean, the big boys always won, right? I mean, you look at all the teams that won the league over the years. It's always the big boys. But I think the fact that like you can't win the league unless you have like 90 something points now, that was never the case. I think, Gordo, that kind of shows how big the disparity is now between the top and the bottom. It was a bit closer. It was still different. It's just the gap has grown where you got to win every game. And, even without City, you look at this season and it's the same situation.
Well, the gap between the top three and even Villa, right?
True.
What was it? 11 points, 12 points at the end of the
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
on there, yeah.
And the other thing that I think too that supports John is like, look at what City has done, right? Like in any context of sports, hate them or not, doing it illegally or not, they have won 6 out of the last 7 titles. They won 4 in a row, and no one gave a shit. No one cared. Yeah. Not even their own fans cared. And I think that shows that we're just done. It's done. It's annoying. At no point in the season, did I not think City were going to win the title. And I think
it goes back to, to support John's point again. Like it's kind of like PSG winning the French league, or like Dortmund or somebody else like Leverkusen winning the German league and stuff like that. It's kind of like a shocker, but Bayern, because Bayern wins it all the freaking time, so it's not a big deal really. They're like, they won it again, especially to an outsider. I think because we're so in Premier League, it's kind of hard for people to take a step out and look back in. And then when John points it out, people bash the hell out of him. So that's good times. Anytime John is getting bashed for that, or Gravenberg or whatever it is. The City fans,
like people, individuals care. But like as a whole, when you look at like when other teams win, like even the parade for like for United winning the FA Cup just now. They're not even parade for it. But like I feel like more people were interested in that than City winning the title. There are obviously always going to be fans. There are always going to be people that are over the top and will celebrate every little victory. But in terms of like overall support, it's not what you think it would be for a 4-time, like 4 in a row champions.
Yeah, I mean, if you win like beat a crappy team. I mean, you still are happy. Like if you're out there playing and you beat a crappy team, you're still happy you're winning. Right. But it's not the same as winning against a competitive team. The joy of like at the end, when the final whistle goes, is a lot different than we're like, won again, kind of a thing.
If we win 8 in a row, I'm going to celebrate the 8th one as hard as I would the first, right? But like in terms of like the rest of the world giving a shit, like with coverage and everything. I mean, it was like 17% of people were watching City.
Would you even celebrate the 8th one the same way?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, that's everything. I mean, Liverpool's success is my success. If they're doing well, I'm doing well. That's how pathetic my life is.
If we're doing it under this front office and in terms of how things are run, and we win 8 in a row, I would be celebrating it absolutely vociferously, because I know we did it the right way, which is paying for players through what we've earned legitimately and all of that, which is why I feel like the whole City thing, like even if you're a fan, like I understand there are some fans that would absolutely just throw the towel and go like, oh wow, we won 4 in a row and are celebrating vociferously. But at the end of the day, you're just like, you still got this big shadow on your back just touching your shoulder that says 115 charges. We're going like, hold on a minute. It's just human nature where you just think that, is this really legit?
Yeah, there's
is this really like, yeah.
different. Yeah, I know what you mean. Like their situation is different. They're not just like winning; they're winning with there's like a cloud. Is the storm gonna hit? When is the storm coming?
And sorry, Tim, not to make another basketball reference, but it's different, I guess, if you're not favored to win. Because when the Warriors got Kevin Durant, they won back-to-back titles. I'm a Warriors fan. They didn't hit as much as they did in 2022 and in 2015. I was just personally, this is my opinion. I was just like, okay, we won. But then we were fucking heavily favored to win, that we should have won, where it's just business as usual. Whereas if you did it like a few years ago when the Warriors won the title in 2022, no one gave us a shot to win.
But that's why I feel like if we win 8 in a row, you're probably pretty darn dominant anyway. So I just feel like, the 7th and 8th will be like, here we go again, high five. As opposed to like second and third.
There are going to be ridiculous individuals, like to Sparky's point. It's like there's going to be an individual like me who is going to celebrate no matter what. There's going to be regular people who aren't as deeply connected with their life to where the team is on the table that are going to be like, yeah, business as usual. So that's what I meant by that. It's just like there's always going to be nuts.
Well, let's hope we get there to kind of like see how it goes. Yeah, to see how it goes, and maybe I'll be like, you know what, you were right. I could celebrate 8th just as much, kind of a thing. So yeah, let's start this year, and then we'll find out in 2032. We'll be back in the show recapping.
Ending the pod on a high note.
Ending the pod on a high note. Well, as always, thanks to everybody joining us. We went way over, but it's all good times over here. And I will be reporting live this weekend from the Gordo household, taking pictures of those ducks and everything like that. So I can't wait for next week's show over here. But everybody have a great Wednesday. The boys will be back tomorrow night. No fantasy guys, obviously, because they're in their own fantasy land now for the summer. But the boys will be back tomorrow nights. I'm sure there'll be a lot of Nunez and Gravenberch bashing. So tune in. And a lot of like Actenberg appreciation.
The Thursday podcast bash Gravenberch too.
They bash everybody, dude. They'll be
okay. I was like, I thought he was being singled out. Like I'm gonna go message Macca right now. Macca, come on, man. Like I thought we were.
Have an excellent Wednesday, everyone, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.
Take care, guys.